Tampa Bay is like no place else.
Wait, you can't recycle the bag. You have to throw it away.
Proper recycling keeps it that way for everyone. Bags tangle in machinery and can bring sorting efforts to a halt.
No bags.
Trash the bags and keep our recycling program moving forward.
No, Mom, look. No plastic bags.
Do your part to keep our recycling bag-free. Trash the tanglers or return them to participating retailers. For more information, visit tampabayrecycles.org.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners March 12, 2025 Comprehensive Plan Amendment Workshop. Before we get started, I want to read into the record from Commissioner Gwen Myers, Please be advised that I'm unable to attend the Wednesday, March 12, 2025 BOCC CPA workshop due to unexpected circumstances. Please read the reason for my absence into the record. And with that, if the clerk could give us a roll call to establish attendance.
Good afternoon. Chair Hagan,
Here.
Bowles,
Here.
Cameron Cepeda,
Here.
Cohen,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Myers, Wolfstall.
Here.
You have a quorum, sir.
All right, thank you. And with that, I'll pass things over to Ms. Leinhart, the Planning Commission, to introduce the first item.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. The two items, Ms. Jillian Massey. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I will share my screen. Good afternoon. This is Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. I'll be briefing on HC CPA 24-33, which is a proposed urban service area expansion at 1620 South Dover Road. This is a privately initiated text amendment to expand the urban service area to include approximately 31.83 acres that is currently designated residential 1. There is an associated proposed map amendment, HC CPA 24-34, to change the designation to residential 4, which I will present following this. The location of this plan amendment request is in the eastern portion of unincorporated county. It was originally submitted as part of the July 2024 cycle and continued to the January cycle after initial consideration by the board. It is in the rural area and not within the limits of a community plan. This is an aerial photo of the site outlined in pink. The blue line indicates the existing urban service area boundary. The site is located on the east side of South Dover Road, south of State Road 60 and north of Durant Road. Surrounding uses mainly include single-family residential to the east, west, and south, and the Energy Industrial Park designated property is located to the north and northeast of the site. If the expansion is approved, the neighborhood directly to the west, which is the Dover Woods subdivision, would remain in the rural area, but would be surrounded by the urban service area. As mentioned, the impact of this amendment would bring 31.83 acres that are currently designated residential 1 into the urban service area, which would require at a minimum connection to public water and sewer. And that concludes the briefing on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any questions or comments. If we can go to the next item.
Again, this is Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. I'll now be presenting on HC CPA 24-34, which is the associated map amendment at 1620 South Dover Road. This request is a privately initiated small-scale map amendment proposing to change approximately 31.83 acres in the residential 1 designation to residential 4. It's in the eastern part of the county in the rural area and not part of a community plan. As I previously mentioned, the site's located on the east side of South Dover Road, south of State Road 60 and north of Durant Road, and the surrounding uses are mainly single-family residential and the Energy Industrial Park designated land to the north and northeast. The site's currently in the residential 1 future land use category. It allows for the consideration of low density residential at a density of 1 dwelling unit per gross acre, rural scale neighborhood commercial, office, and multi-purpose projects. And neighborhood commercial uses are subject to locational criteria. Surrounding land use categories include residential 1 to the east, residential 4 to the south and to the west, and the Energy Industrial Park category to the north and northeast. And that brighter yellow color off to the northwest is residential 6. The request is to change the site from residential to residential 4, excuse me. which allows for the consideration of low-density residential at 4 dwelling units per gross acre, neighborhood commercial, office uses, and multi-purpose projects subject to locational criteria. This slide outlines the potential impacts of the requested land use change. Currently, under the residential 1, the site can be considered for up to 31 dwelling units or approximately 350,000 square feet of non-residential development, subject to locational criteria. The change to residential 4 increases the potential density to 127 dwelling units, and the non-residential intensity remains the same. Therefore, overall, the proposed amendment would allow for an increase in potential density. And this concludes the briefing on this item.
We have any questions or comments? I don't see anyone. So next item.
Yes, sir. Item A3 will be presented by Mr. Tyreek Royal. Thank you.
Hello. Share my screen. Good afternoon, Tyreek Royal, Planning Commission staff, and today I'll be presenting HC CPA 2501 at 2002 West 60 Highway. This request is privately initiated small-scale map amendment with approximately 9.5 acres. The request is to change the land use designation from residential 1 to office commercials 20. The location of the site is in the eastern portion of unincorporated Hillsborough County. It's a part of the January 2025 cycle in the rural area, a wellhead protection area, and it's not located within the limits of a community plan. This is an aerial photo of the site outlined here in pink. It is located north of State Road 60, west and south of Mud Lake Road. Surrounding uses include agricultural uses to the west and south, single-family uses to the north, and light commercial uses to the east. The site is in the residential 1 future land use category. It allows for the consideration of agricultural, farms, ranches, residential, neighborhood, commercial, office, and multi-purpose projects. Commercial uses are subject to locational criteria. The subject site is approximately 1.7 miles from the urban service area. The applicant is requesting to change the future land use category from AR15 to OC20. The OC20 allows for consideration of community commercial type uses, office uses, mixed use development, and compatible residential uses. Agricultural uses may be permitted pursuant to the policies and agricultural objective areas of the future land use section. The change from Res 1 to OC20 would allow for an increase in development by allowing significantly higher residential density and greater commercial intensity. The density of 1 dwelling unit per gross acre would increase to 20 dwelling units per gross acre. The commercial intensity would increase from a 0.25 FAR or a maximum of 310 square feet. Anything above a 0.35 FAR must be for office or residential support uses and not retail. And that concludes my briefing on this item.
Commissioner Wellstrom.
Thank you, Mr. And this is an extreme jump from AR1 to OC20. So is there something that this is one of those nuanced situations where there was no other code to accomplish some type of ag industrial use that they were looking for on the site? It's just, I mean, I'm just curious because this is introducing a pretty significant jump in that area. So can we elaborate a little bit more?
Yes, and Melissa Leinhardt, would you mind maybe helping with this? But so it is a significant jump from AR15 to OC20. And I believe that's because in the rural area, there are a lack of future land use designations that applicants can consider for what type of uses they're looking for.
In addition to that, Tyreek is correct in that assessment. In addition to that, I do believe the site is in the wellhead protection area, and we have specific policy direction in the One Water chapter that no new industrial uses can be introduced in those wellhead protection areas. So applicants, not having other options with some of the mixed use categories, actually all of the mixed use categories would allow for the consideration of industrial. And even though the applicant may not wish to pursue that, they have chosen the OC20 category often. And we have definitely noted at a staff level that there may need to be some other options created for these types of uses in the rural area where we don't open a whole can of worms in the wellhead protection area. So It has been discussed as a staff level, and you will likely see a publicly initiated plan amendment in the future to try to add a category that addresses those needs.
Okay, I'll look forward to more conversation on this one then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't see anyone else in the queue. Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. Commissioner Wustel, I'm pretty familiar with that stretch of land, and I actually have a question on it as well. So what is the category of, say, there's a horse farm there where they do leasing, there's a boarding facility there for animals. What is that category in that stretch of land? So there is some commercial there, but it's agriculture commercial, I guess.
So HTV, would you mind bringing up that presentation again for item A3? And perhaps we can navigate to the future land use map. Should be the slide after, I believe. It shows the current future land use. Oh, yes, there you go. So is it on the north side of State Road 60? All of these properties are, so kind of that light yellow is a residential 1.
Okay.
Is that the area you're talking about?
Definitely, yeah, the farms are definitely right there.
Okay.
So
yeah, and
I guess what I'm saying is there's some businesses there, but I just don't know what those would be considered. But in that little stretch, because I know I've been to the horse barn, and it's like a rescue, and they do horse riding and everything out there. And then there's a boarding facility for everything from horses to dogs and stuff also right there.
Okay, that's something that we can certainly look into prior to the public hearing when you all see this again. The other thing that I would note is that neighborhood serving commercial uses, which are those commercial uses that are allowed in the commercial neighborhood or CN, and commercial general or CG zoning districts, those are allowed in the residential categories, which would include the residential 1. We do also have special policy for certain agricultural uses that may be more intense than those neighborhood serving uses, and they're very supportive policies to preserve agricultural uses, and that would be countywide. We allow ag uses in every single one of our plan categories. So we can certainly look into that and report back about the uses that are adjacent and what those designations are specifically.
Thank you. I think that will be helpful. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Commissioner Wustel.
Ignore that.
Oh, okay. I don't see anyone else in the queue. So next item.
All right, item A4 will be presented by Ms. Willow Miki, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Good afternoon. I'm Willow Miki with your Planning Commission staff. I will be briefing HC CPA 25-02, which is at 115 South 78th Street and 7749 East Adamo Drive. Sorry about that. I think I shared the wrong screen. Hold on. Okay. This request is a privately initiated small-scale map amendment. It is made up of 2 parcels that total approximately 4.18 acres. The request is to change the land use designation of these parcels from residential 12 to light industrial plan. This plan amendment is part of the January 2025 cycle, located in the urban service area, and is within the limits of the Greater Palm River Community Plan, and it is in the coastal high hazard area. This is an aerial photo of the site outlined here in pink. It is located north of Selman Expressway, south of East Adamo Drive, and west of South 78th Street. Within the vicinity of the site, there is heavy commercial and light commercial uses to the north, the Selman Expressway ramp to the east, the Selman Expressway to the south, and the Tampa Bypass Canal to the west. The site is in the residential 12 land use category. It allows for the considerations of agricultural, residential, neighborhood commercial, office uses, multi-purpose projects, and mixed use development. Surrounding land use categories include light industrial plan to the north and east. There is residential 12 and residential 9 to the south of the Summit Expressway. On the west side of the Tampa Bypass Canal, there is heavy industrial that is in the city of Tampa. This request is to change the site to light industrial planned, which allows for the consideration of uses such as agricultural, light industrial uses such as processing, manufacturing, recycling, and storage of materials as the predominant uses, including support offices, warehousing, and retail uses. No residential is allowed under this category. This slide outlines the potential impacts of the requested land use change. Currently under residential 12, the site can be considered for up to 50 dwelling units or approximately 91,040 square feet of non-residential. The change to light industrial plan would not allow for the consideration of residential uses, but would allow for approximately 136,560 square feet of non-residential uses. The proposed amendment will result in the potential increase in commercial intensity and the introduction of industrial uses and would eliminate the potential for residential development. This concludes the briefing on this item, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Don't see any. So next item.
Okay, then we are at item A5, which will be presented by Ms. Krista Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you. Krista Kelly, Planning Commission staff. I'm presenting to you HCCPA 2502. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the wrong. It's 2503. There we go. So it's CPA 2503. This site is located adjacent to Lutz Lake Fern Road, just west of the Suncoast Parkway. Next. This is a privately initiated large-scale amendment. It's approximately 308 acres in size. The applicant's requesting a change from agricultural rural 1 to 5, which allows 1 unit per 5 acres, to residential 4, which increases the density to 4 units per acre. Next slide. The red star indicates the location of the subject site in the most northern portion of the county. It is a companion amendment with HCCPA 2504, which will be presented next. The companion amendment seeks to expand the urban service area to include the properties that make up this plan amendment, HCCPA 2503. While 2503 and 04 are interrelated, they are being presented separately. Back to HCCPA 2503, this is a 300-acre site that abuts Pasco County to the north and extends southward to Lutz Lake Fern Road, approximately a quarter-mile west of the Suncoast Parkway Exchange. The majority of the site is in the rural area on the north side of Lutz Lake Fern Road. Approximately 14 acres of the site is on the south side of the road and is within the urban service boundary. In addition, the subject site is within the area covered by the Keystone Odessa Community Plan. Next slide, please. Okay, this is an aerial of the site outlined in the pink dashed lines. The amendment side, as you can see, is mainly undeveloped with the exception of borrow pit activity in the northwest corner of the site. To the west of the area is characterized by an established rural residential development pattern interspersed with environmental preservation lands, including the Brooker Creek Headwater Preserve to the south of the site, and the land is also used for conservation, as you see the Upper Tampa Bay Trail. The Suncoast Parkway is located in close proximity to the east, and as you travel to the east across the parkway, the area becomes more suburban in character, beginning with the Steinbrenner High School at the interchange and McKendrick Elementary School. And these schools are surrounded by large planned residential developments, including Cheval and Velorusso, which feature equestrian and golf course amenities. Next slide, please. This is the adopted future land use map showing the site currently designated agricultural rural 1 to 5. As you can see on both to the east and west, the area is designated residential 1. This category recognizes the rural residential and transition to suburban scale residential development along Lutz Lake Fern. There is some higher density, as you see on the south side of Lutz Lake Fern, in that light peach color, which is residential 4, and then a little bit brighter yellow color, which is residential 2. Next slide, please. Here you see the site designated residential 4, which is what is being proposed. Again, the only similar land use categories are to the south of Lutz Lake Fern, again, the peach color and the yellow color, which are residential 4 and residential 2. To the southwest, you see the Upper Tampa Bay Trail designation, which is in the area designated natural preservation. Next slide. Currently, the site with the agricultural rural 1 to 5 designation allows up to 61 dwelling units. It has a 0.25 FAR, which would allow approximately 3.3 million square feet of non-residential use meeting locational criteria. The proposed change to residential 4 would allow up to 1,235 dwelling units. The FAR does not change. So in summary, the proposed amendment would result in the increase of 1,175 dwelling units and would allow for suburban scale development. The non-residential square footage would not change. Next slide, please. And that concludes my briefing on this proposed amendment, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? I don't see any, so we can go to the next item.
Okay, next we have the accompanying urban service area expansion item, which is presented by Ms. Yanika Mills.
Hold on one moment. Commissioner Bowles, do you want to comment on the last item? Nope. Okay, please continue.
I'm sorry. No, I did. I was trying to figure out how to raise the hand on this thing. Looking, and I know the map that you were just showing, it shows, isn't a significant, I'm looking at the map now on the property appraiser site. It looks like a significant portion of that area is like wetlands. Where are they going to put 1,000 homes on that?
That would be addressed at the site plan and rezoning stage. However, the property appraiser indicates that the area is used for agricultural purposes. There are some highlands, and yes, there are quite a bit of floodplain indicated on the site. However, the Environmental Protection Commission would have to weigh in on that and give us an indication of truly what the conditions are on site.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm just looking, I'm not sure what aerial you use, but I'm looking at an aerial now, which is updated as of 2024.
Right.
And that borrow pit takes up a lot of it. And then when you look at least just current open land, I mean, it's a sliver around the entire area. It just looks like, I don't know where, where it says, I know going res 4 could be 1,000 homes. I don't know where they do that without destroying all that natural preserve. So I don't know if that's kind of accurate in a way, but I understand. So thank you. I was just curious if that was even taken into consideration. Is that more plan development, site plan kind of issues that you down the road?
Right. And again, at the when we bring it back for public hearing, the environmental agencies can weigh in and give you more detail
Okay.
about what you're seeing.
All right. All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to kind of make a note of that.
Well,
Yes,
thank you.
Commissioner Bowles, great point. Krista, great answers. I would just echo what Krista said, is that we're anticipating our agency comments coming in right now. Some have already come in for some of the amendments. There's quite a few in this cycle. So we will, for the public hearing, for the adoption and the transmittal hearings, we will have those agency comments. They will be in your backup, and we will discuss those as part of our analysis. So we'll take those into consideration. But as Krista said, the more detailed and nuanced view of that will really come at the rezoning stage, and then when they come in for site development. But we agree with you that there's a lot of natural and probably like topographical issues with that site. We've seen that as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gormley, you want to comment?
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to echo what said and confirm that a significant portion of that site is wetlands. And at the time that if this amendment's approved, at the time that they are seeking zoning, their allowable density would be subject to the wetland density credit calculation. So the raw numbers aren't necessarily what they could achieve. And then following that, whatever the maximum density they could get, it would need to fit within their site. And any desired impacts to wetlands would be subject to review by EPC at the time of zoning.
I think if I recall, there was a similar formula calculation that had to be taken with the gentleman who bought some property up in Lutz a month ago or 2 months ago. And even though he could put 2 homes on it, by the time he actually did the calculation, it's only 1 home. So
yes, correct.
Yeah. This would be, when it kind of gets to that point, this would kind of be a similar situation where that would be, those similar calculations would be taken into consideration.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Please continue. Next item.
So we have item A6, which will be presented by Ms. Yanika Mills. Thank you.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Let me share my screen. Am I in the correct mode? PowerPoint mode? Can't tell.
If you go down to the little slideshow, you'll be able to full screen it on the bottom right. There is a presenter mode. There you go.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Yanika Mills, Planning Commission staff. I am here to present HC CPA 2504.
Yanika, sorry, but we're still not seeing it in presentation mode.
Yanika, oh, there you go.
There you go. Yes, now it works. Thanks.
This request is privately initiated, map amendment, approximately 295 acres. And the request is to bring those 295 acres into the urban service area. There is an associated plan amendment with this amendment, HC CPA 2503. The site is located within the northwestern portion of unincorporated Hillsborough County, located within the limits of the Keystone Odessa Community Plan. More specifically, it's located on the north side of Lutz Lakefront Road and south of Pasco County line, east of Berry Acre Trails and west of the Suncoast Parkway. Again, there is an associated plan amendment for future land use designation change, and that's HCCPA 2503. This is an aerial photo of the subject site outlined in pink. The blue line represents the urban service area boundary. The areas southeast of the blue line are currently within the urban service area. The surrounding development pattern is rural in nature with a large lot single family residential to the west. There is smaller lots, single family residential to the east, and that's due to clustering with the future land uses. But for the most part, this area is rural level density. As for the impacts of this request, if approved, the request would expand the urban service area by 295 acres, which at minimum would also require a connection to water and sewer. And this concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I don't see anyone in the queue, so go to 2505.
Yes, sir. Item A7 will be presented by Ms. Willow Mickey. Thanks,
Thank you.
HTV.
Good afternoon. I'm Willow Mickey with your Planning Commission staff. I will be briefing HC CPA 25-05, which is at 6920 East Chelsea Street. Next slide. This request is a privately initiated small-scale map amendment. It is made up of one parcel that totals approximately 3.74 acres. The request is to change the land use designation of these parcels from residential 6 to light industrial planned. Next slide. This plan amendment is part of the January 2025 cycle. It is located in the urban service area and is within the limits of East Lake Orient Park Community Plan. Next slide. This is an aerial photo of the site outlined here in pink. It is located north of East Chelsea Street and is southeast of Interstate 4. Within the vicinity of the site, there is light commercial uses to the west and single-family uses to the east. Interstate 4 is to the north across East Chelsea Street to the south. There is public, quasi-public, and heavy commercial uses. Next slide. The site is in the residential 6 land use category. It allows for the consideration of agricultural, residential, neighborhood commercial, office uses, multi-purpose projects, and mixed-use development. Surrounding land use categories include residential 6 to the east, west, and north across Interstate 4. There is Research Corporate Park, light industrial planned, and office commercial 20 uses to the south. Next slide. The request is to change the site to light industrial planned, which allows for the consideration of uses such as agricultural, light industrial uses such as processing, manufacturing, recycling, and storage of materials as the predominant uses, including support offices, warehousing, and retail uses. No residential is allowed under this category. Next slide. This slide outlines the potential impacts of the requested land use change. Currently, under residential 6, the site can be considered for up to 22 dwelling units or approximately 40,728 square feet of non-residential uses. The change to light industrial planned would not allow for the consideration of residential uses, but would allow for up to approximately 122,185 square feet of non-residential uses. The proposed amendment will result in the potential increase in commercial intensity and the introduction of industrial uses. It would eliminate the potential for residential development. Next slide. This concludes the briefing on this item, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see anyone in the queue, so we can go to the next item.
All right, item A8 will be presented by Ms. Alexis Myers.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Alexis Myers, Planning Commission staff. I'm here to present HCCPA 2507, located at 16410 Bon Waimama Road. And I'll just share my screen. Okay, like I mentioned, this is located at 16410 Bon Waimama Road. This is a privately initiated map amendment that is large in scale and approximately 470.9 acres. The applicant is requesting.
Excuse me real quick, we're not seeing yours as a full screen either.
Oh,
not sure what's happening today.
So if you go down to your presenter mode on the right-hand side, down the bottom, there's a little icon that looks like a slideshow.
Okay, is it better now?
No, we're still seeing your slides. This doesn't typically happen, so I'm not sure why it's happening today.
I can, HTV can handle it from our side. I'll bring up the presentation and I'll go full screen. Just tell me next slide, okay?
Okay, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Dan.
Okay, yes. Again, good afternoon, Commissioners. Alexis Myers, Planning Commission staff. I'm here to present HCCPA 2507, located at 16410 Balm-Waimama Road. Next slide, please. This is a privately initiated map amendment that is large in scale and approximately 470.9 acres. The applicant is requesting to change the future land use designation from agricultural 1 to 5 to residential 4. Next slide, please. This is the general location map. This amendment is associated with HCCPA 2508 to expand the urban service area. It is in the rural area within the limits of the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Community Plan. It is located north of State Road 674 and east of Balm-Waimama Road. Next slide. Here's the aerial of the site. The site is outlined in pink, and the blue line indicates the urban service area boundary. The site currently has agriculture, single-family uses, and vacant land. The site also has wetlands and is in the FEMA flood zone AE. Agriculture is to the east, west, and north, while there are single-family uses to the north, south, and east, and further west in the urban service area. Vacant land is to the north, south, and east, while natural preservation is directly west. Lastly, there are public, quasi-public institution uses to the south and west. Next slide, please. Currently, the future land use designation is agricultural rural 1 to 5. The agricultural rural 1 to 5 category allows 1 dwelling unit per 5 gross acres and a maximum floor area ratio of 0.25. This designation allows for the consideration of farms, ranches, feedlots, residential, neighborhood, commercial, office, industrial uses related to agricultural uses, and mining related activities. Other future land use categories shown in this map include Waimama Village Residential 2 and natural preservation to the west and south, and agricultural 1 to 10 to the east. Next slide. The applicant is proposing to amend the future land use category to residential 4. The residential 4 category allows 4 dwelling units per gross acre and a maximum floor area ratio of 0.25. This designation allows for the consideration of agricultural, residential, neighborhood commercial, office uses, and multi-purpose projects. Next slide. Next are the impacts. As far as existing conditions, currently under AR 1 to 5, the site could consider 94 dwelling units or 5,128,101 square feet of non-residential uses. Under the proposed future land use designation of Res 4, the site could consider 1,883 dwelling units or the same amount of square footage of non-residential uses. During the rezoning process, commercial locational criteria may affect the allowable square footage of potential non-residential development. This proposed amendment will result in the increase in development potential by allowing higher residential and greater commercial intensity. Next slide, please. And this concludes my presentation for 2507, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments? Commissioner Bowles?
Just kind of along the same lines, looking at the aerial views that you showed and the aerial view that I'm looking at again on the property appraiser's website. There's huge, it looks borrow pits or something, or they don't look natural. So like borrow pits as well again in another conservation area. So when we're talking about 1,883 units, we're not that necessarily taking into consideration all the land that's underwater or in a wet and conservative area. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. We do look at things from a very high level when we're looking at a potential map amendment. So all those little nuances like the wetland density credit, comments from EPC, how many uplands you have, comments from natural resources and wetland setbacks, all those types of things, those would be considered at the rezoning stage. Though again, we will get agency comments for these, so we'll have more information at the next public hearing or at the public hearing.
Yeah, and that was my understanding, but for those who may be listening, I just want, because if we're getting, comments and people concerned that there's going to be 2,000 homes built there, there's truly not going to be 2,000 homes built there. So I just kind of wanted to kind of have that, those comments kind of on the record at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wostel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bowles, I just wanted to reassure you that now that this is put on paper, your aides can be prepared for an onslaught of emails based off of that number. This is not the first time I've voiced frustration about that, but there's really nothing the Planning Commission can do because it's the same reason we can't prematurely study an expansion truly of these areas because you just have no idea what the property owner might come in with. You can base study it off of residential 4, but then they come in and Amazon says, I want 8 Amazon warehouses. And then we've studied something that is never going to exist. And we've wasted a lot of money and time because the Planning Commission they don't have a crystal ball that can predict what the economy is going to drive into that area. And it's something it's very difficult to explain to folks that are going to get really jazzed up about seeing allegedly 1,800 more homes coming into the area. Thank you.
Just a response. I appreciate that, Commissioner Whistle and Chair Hagan, that, for allowing us to at least get this information out there to the degree that anyone's listening, but thank you very much.
Okay, I don't see anyone else. Next item.
The next item is item A9, and that will also be presented by Alexis. HTC, do you mind bringing that one up? Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. Alexis Myers, Planning Commission staff again, here to present HCCPA 2508, located at 16410 Bonwamama Road for the urban service area expansion. Next slide. This is a privately initiated map amendment that is large in scale and approximately 470.9 acres. The applicant is requesting to expand the urban service area by the 479.9 acres. This amendment is associated with HCCPA 2507, which is a request to change the future land use category from AR1 to 5 to Res 4. Next slide. This is the general location map. As I mentioned, this amendment is associated with HCCPA 2507. It is in the rural area and within the limits of the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Community Plan. It is located north of State Road 674 and east of Bonwamama Road. Next slide. Here is the area of the site again. The site is outlined in pink and the blue line indicates the existing urban service area boundary. Next slide. Currently, the future land use designation is agricultural rural 1 to 5. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to amend the future land use category to residential 4 to expand the urban service area by 470.9 acres. Next slide, please. Next are the impacts. The proposed amendment will result in the increase in development potential by allowing higher residential and greater commercial intensity. It will also have to connect to water and sewer. Next slide, please. And this concludes my presentation for 2508, and I am happy to answer any questions.
I don't see anyone in the queue, so we can go to the last item.
Yes, sir. The last item, item A10, will be presented by Ms. Andrea Papandrew.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. HTV, would you mind pulling up the presentation for 2509? Thank you. This is HCCPA 25-09 Valrico Community Plan. Next slide, please. This is a publicly initiated text amendment. On March 1st, 2023, Board of County Commissioners requested staff to initiate the process to create the Valrico Community Plan. If adopted, the Valrico Community Plan will be the 23rd community plan to be created and adopted into the livable communities element of the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. The plan establishes a vision for Valrico and contains 4 goals with multiple strategies. The map on the screen before you shows the Valrico Community Plan boundary when staff started the process in 2023. This is based off of, it shows the county's Valrico Community Planning area. Those boundaries were defined and updated through community engagement, and we'll show a more defined updated map at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. So the process began in the spring of 2023 with the board's initial request. Staff started initial community meetings in the summer of 2023. Through 2023 and 2024, we had ongoing community engagement and data collection. Staff conducted activities such as a vision survey, boundary map, SWOT analysis, and in-person office hours. Final community meetings were held in the fall of 2024, and the last in-person office hours were held in February of 2025. So we're currently in the amendment process as part of the January 2025 cycle, and we'll be back before the board on May 8th for a public hearing. Next slide, please. So multiple methods were used to engage the community from 2023 through 2024, including 4 rounds of community-wide meetings, in-person office hours, and online surveys. We also had a project website updated regularly with project information, and staff were also requested to present by 3 community groups. And so more additional detailed information about our engagement is in the not adopted background portion of your packets. Next slide, please. So the results of public engagement was the creation of 4 main goals for the El Rico Community Plan. So goal 1 is on infrastructure, timely provision and maintenance of public facilities and infrastructure. Goal 2 is on development, enhancing overall character of the area through compatible land use and design. Goal 3 is on mobility, safe connections for all modes of travel between neighborhoods, commercial areas, and community facilities. And then goal 4 is environment and recreation, preservation, conservation, and restoration of natural areas, parks, and recreation areas. So staff will be back May 8th for the public hearing. We'll have more detailed information on all the strategies that go behind each of the 4 goals, but the draft plan is in your packets. Next slide, please. So the map shows the proposed boundary for the El Rico Community Plan. The boundary goes north to Sydney Road and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, east to Dover Road, south of Lithia Pinecrest Road, and west to Sefner Valrico Road and Bell Shoals Road. So the black and white map that was at the beginning of the PowerPoint was the county's Valrico Plain area boundary. Combined with Valrico zip codes, that was the starting point for the proposed community plan boundaries. And then that map was finalized based off community feedback for the boundaries that you see before you today. So the Valrico Community Plan does not include the private energy industrial park land to the east, which is outlined in blue. HTV, I have an animation. Do you mind hitting the next button? Go back. So there is animation HTV.
I don't think we have the capability for that. It's not showing me anything from me. Maybe you have it on your end.
Okay. My apologies, commissioners. I thought the animation would work when HTV showed.
That just came up.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So the brown shaded area on the map are the properties that are proposed to be within the Valrico Community Plan that are already in the Brandon Community Plan boundary today. This was requested by residents of the area, and staff, our research showed that these properties have an existing Valrico zip code. The shaded area in purple corresponds to a citizen requested boundary change. This was brought up late in the planning process, and a public comment has been sent to the Board of County Commissioners requesting to expand the Valrico Community Plan boundary south of Bloomingdale Avenue to John Moore Road to align with the Bloomingdale Special Tax District. So that includes the presentation and available for any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Wostel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to the citizen requested boundary expansion, I have a feeling I know the answer and that I'm probably not going to like it, but how many of the people inside that area do you guys base your decision on to expand this community plan over to them? And I'll tell you why I'm asking. I was not involved yet with the WVR2, but I can tell you that when that was put into place, that land was put into place by a minority, almost a super minority of the people that actually lived there, and definitely a minority of the actual property owners, particularly the farmers who had no interest at all of being included into the restrictive nature of that community plan over their own property that they've owned and tended for over a century. So what's your criteria for citizens to come in? Is there a percentage of how many people of property you're going to say and agree, hey, you can put these restrictive covenants, I guess is kind of what they are, over other people's property? Like, what's your baseline?
So this is Jay Collins with the Planning Commission staff, and I can take a stab at having an answer for you, Commissioner. There is not a set number, right? So community planning, sometimes you might end up having 1,000 people that work with you during a community plan. Sometimes you might have 100 people that work with you. In this instance, what we looked at was looking at the Brandon community plan, the policy that we were looking at in the Valrico community plan, and wanting to make sure that they were copacetic with one another. We then continue to have conversations with folks who are in Bloomingdale, since that is the geography there that's outlined, who said, well, you left off part of Bloomingdale. And we were like, we did? What part is that? And they go, the purple area. It's still part of our taxing district for Bloomingdale. It's part of our DRI. So we actually learned a little bit from the people out there about the planning for their own community in this process.
Okay, yeah, for this one, I completely get, because they have their own taxing district. They should be under one community plan. But I was just, so for WVR2, you guys were just kind of shooting into the wind, and whatever you hit, you hit. You didn't go and get, per se, permission over thousands of acres of people's property that they've owned for over a century. You guys just, hey, these 15 people in this activist group said that this would be a great idea, and that was the decision-making process of it. So, okay. It would seem that there should be a much more significant requirement and barrier to entry for us to be responsible governance over people's property than just whoever shows up at the meeting. But, okay, I'll digress. Thank you.
Commissioner Bowles?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As I've come to find out, and I think as Mr. Collins was just alluding to, got some information. So it appears that the special taxing district and that whole area has been together since like 1979. And, obviously they share a similar zip code and all. Those people that would now be separated would be paying $170 a year to maintain those common areas, and that will be split between the two different plans. So it would, just seem like it would be the natural thing to keep that community together, and that, just the kind of, sometimes these lines seem to be arbitrary in a way, as I think Commissioner Whistle was kind of alluding to, but if anything, I think that we should really ensure that that community stays together. People who are paying a special tax should stay together and certainly be considered the same. So, for what it's worth, that's my comments on that.
Okay, I don't see anyone else in the queue. So with that, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
See y'all later.